What makes a falcon a falcon? Is it our vibrant mosaic of students, staff, and volunteers, each contributing unique stories of heartbreak, love, and triumph? Is it the breathtaking landscape that cradles our school, nestled perfectly amidst the roaring rivers and serene lakes of the north and the rich farmland of the south? For nearly 200 years, Fenelon Falls High School has stood as a testament to the resilience and spirit of our community. This is the story that explores the history that has shaped us, the defining moments that bind us, and the undeniable strength found in the diversity of the communities that create us. Beginning in the 1830s, volunteers like Anne Langton and her Anglican minister, Thomas Fiddler, taught school in the Fenelon Falls area. The village's first public school opened in 1869, but at the time, secondary education was still quite unusual, until 1882, when work began digging the Fenelon Falls Canal, and the stone was used to build a second school south of the river, completed in 1886. The stone school began offering continuation courses 12 years later. Today, this would be known as secondary schooling. In 1912, the South Ward School became Fenelon Falls Continuation School, as it specialized in higher education. In 1933, a new brick Fenelon Falls Continuation School opened next door, with 4 classrooms and indoor plumbing, which was the beginning of the present building used today. As there was no busing or set modes of transportation, getting to Fenelon Falls Continuation School was an adventure in itself, and for many rural families, they had to get creative with their commutes.
When my brother Murray, who was 3 years older than I, started high school, there were no buses, and so it was up to the students to get themselves to Fenelon Falls. A neighbor was a little bit older, and he drove the family car. However, when winter came, of course, the roads weren't plowed well at that time, so Dad hitched up the team of horses and sleigh ready at 7:30, and they took the horse and sleigh into Fenelon Falls.
My sister, who was older than I, when she started high school, she boarded with my great aunt and uncle who lived right across from the high school. And my dad would take her in on Sunday night and then pick her up Friday night when the school week was over. But I was enough younger that by the time I started grade 9, one of the neighbor sons was driving, so both Victoria and I got a ride with him. I think we paid him $1.50 a week to take us to school.
Those living near the railway line sometimes could take the train, but then they might not be able to attend all their classes as they were bound by the train's schedule and had to catch the return trip home. The Wilkinson family operated the Burnt River Express, transporting students in the back of a van. Starting in the late 1940s, a network of school buses was gradually introduced, making it practical for any child to attain a secondary education.
When we were in high school, they had what they called a cadet corps. And I think we mostly liked it because it was nice to be out in the sunshine and walking around. And there were 4 platoons, and each platoon had a lieutenant who was the head one, and then there was a sergeant.
The cadet program was introduced during the First World War, which gave students basic military training. For decades, it was a common sight to see local students marching. No coats allowed, even in cool weather, and hot tunics in the summer sun.
everybody, the girls and the boys, joined the cadets.
We marched and we marched. And we had a day near the end of the year where we were on parade.
The cadet inspection was probably in May. You formed your platoons and you got your leaders of each platoon and you went through the procedures on a regular basis to prepare for this inspection. In the cadets, we had a practice session, which there was a chosen group of those that were going to continue in the shooting, and we went to what they called Graham's Gravel Pit, which was the only place that had large, safe area, and most of it you were using 22s.
It started out, boys had to carry a rifle. By the time that I was there the last year, it was decided that the grade 9 boys didn't need to carry a rifle.
I don't think anyone was too struck on the outfits we wore. We wore new navy tunics with a white long-sleeve blouse under it. Gave variety, and I'm sure we learned something from it too.
Though the program faded away during the interwar years, it was revived during the Second World War and was an active organization until 1958, when some students born after World War II, along with some teachers, referred to it as infringing on classroom time, and was disbanded by the Board of Education by 1958. Initially, each community oversaw its own education. The establishment of the Victoria County District High School Board in 1951 paved the way for amalgamation. The newly combined school was renamed Fenelon Falls High School, and by 1960, 3 new additions allowed it to accommodate up to 600 students. Regular bus services brought students from as far away as Norland, Bolsover, Woodville, Kinmount, and Bobcaygeon. The school continued to develop, and the construction of its first gymnasium and auditorium took place in 1952-53, marking a milestone in the history of the school.
What was the building like when you arrived for high school?
A new gymnasium had been added that year. It was the first year that it was in operation. I would say the gymnasium added a lot to the school because it developed a lot of good teams, and any sport that you're in does a lot for you in learning all the skills that are required to be a team member.
As this was the first indoor athletic facility ever available, indoor physical education was made possible. The fall of 1952 also saw the formation of the first Falcons football team, as there was no football field at this time. Home games were played at the Rotary Ballpark until in 1962, when a nearby swamp was filled to create the football field we have today. Sports brought school spirit that was never seen before, bringing staff, students, and the community closer together.
I think sports are critical. I think that they capture an audience or a group of kids that don't necessarily excel academically. I think it gives some kids a reason to show up, and it does teach lessons that transcend school. It teaches commitment. It teaches teamwork. Sports provide opportunities to develop as a person.
We had huge hockey teams and football teams. I know we had soccer and basketball, but hockey was the passion. Fenelon was known for their hockey culture, and I think it actually was more so than football at the time.
The Falcon hockey used to be on Tuesday nights, and that a lot of the school would show up on Tuesday night. It wasn't like an after-school thing, it was actually an evening thing, and that the rink would be packed.
When we played against Halliburton, it was quite heated, and the police had to come and make sure everything was okay. And when we got on the buses and stuff like that. So there was a lot of very heated games, and that kind of stretched into football. And we didn't even really need to have spirit days. The spirit just came out during games.
As Fenelon Falls Secondary School became the district high school, a new generation of passionate teachers had the freedom to share their interests with students. As it became normal for practically all students to complete high school, enrollment continued to increase. Fenelon Falls Secondary School received its final major addition in the early 1990s, which included a new office, library and gym, as well as facilities for music, arts and horticulture.
The construction for the school went on for about 2 years, and then coming back to having all these new classrooms. Our whole science department got renovated, and beautiful new facilities, a new gym. This library was all renovated.
Can I tell you about the construction? Oh my goodness. The phys ed department was moved into a portable, and there were more portables put around the school, even in the parking lots. And they told us at some point that if we'd gone through the hallway on Green Street during this time, that we had to come to the office and sign in because they had found asbestos, and then they blocked off that whole area. I was teaching dance in the hallways with wires hanging from the ceiling. They told us we couldn't use the gym because they found that the south wall was actually freestanding and there was a live fuse box. It just, to me, is like this blur of dust, wires, confusion. It ended up being a lovely addition.
It was really disruptive to a certain extent. And I remember one time Gail and I were working, and the construction people were just outside in the hall, and all of a sudden a piece of concrete about that size came just right here and landed on the floor in front of me. And I thought, ooh, I shouldn't be getting danger pay for this. Everybody had in some way benefited. It was just made everything so much better.
Not long after the expansion of the 1990s, the school reached its peak enrollment. By the late 1990s, the school boasted not only a band, but also an orchestra, along with numerous sports teams and clubs.
Fenelon for many years had a number of musicals. I think it would be every other year that they would perform a musical. But it became a huge school event. So it wasn't just for the actors and the singers, but teachers would build props. So you would get the tech department and those students and those teachers who would build the sets. You would have the musicians and the music students.
To be part of the school musical demanded that you take it seriously and be prepared to give up a lot of time. But it was inspiring because the talent here was always exceptional in my view. Now, I only directed one musical, but it was so difficult to cast a role because there were so many talented kids.
The tickets would be sold out for performances. And I think it was particularly important again because it gave students an opportunity to be involved in something that was outside the classroom. And there were people who were not Ontario scholars or who were not straight A students, but boy, did they have talent, whether it was singing or acting or playing an instrument.
The fact that I directed, I think it was 7 of them, My Fair Lady, Brigadoon, Carousel, Sound of Music. They were big-time shows. And here's this rinky-dink little high school in the middle of nowhere mounting a production of these shows that everyone knew from movies and Toronto and the stages down there. And we were holding our own. And as I've said, they were extremely well received and a very positive experience for all that were involved.
Some of us pushed the limits. In fact, this school, I would say, would be regarded in other places, probably in Lindsay, as kind of the outlaw school or the bad boy school.
I think we were that way because we were not shy about calling people out on things that were wrong or that we disagreed with, but we were also such a strong community that we had a voice and we shouted that really loudly and really clearly. And we weren't afraid to show our scars as much as others were. We were very open about who we were as a community, who we were as a staff, who we were as students. And we're pretty proud of being known as the radical school. That was a source of pride for us. So I think I would like people to know that we were small, but we were mighty.
The school buzzed with activity every night as students participated in the endless extracurricular activities that Fenelon Falls Secondary School offered. For decades, proficiency in typing prepared students for careers in office work, but technology rapidly evolved. By the late 1980s, computers were becoming commonplace, with spreadsheets and computer programming could solve problems quickly that had once been laborious. In the 1990s, the school introduced students to the internet, which would revolutionize communication and learning. It was no longer as important to memorize information that students could easily Google.
The change in technology, especially regarding computers, it was revolutionary during my lifetime.
The internet was coming, dial-up internet. There was still typing class, typing on like those red little keyboards or typewriters, but then we got into word processing. Then the internet came.
And at first it was so slow, and students were still relying on pen and paper. And now it's just completely changed. Students don't have pen and paper. They don't have binders. Everything is on a Chromebook. It's such a different use of technology.
You went from teaching information to teaching students how to find information.
Growing up is making mistakes. So it was easier to make a mistake and learn from that mistake. Now it seems like the kids have all their mistakes recorded for eternity. I also think that we were just more present, right? There was no distractions. You know, when you're in the cafeteria playing euchre, no one's checking their phone. You know, we were just joking and playing cards and just enjoying each other's company. But now if you walk through a high school or any school for that matter, you know, and there's downtime, people are on technology and they're looking at a screen. So I think that's a huge difference right now.
The kids didn't have the things to do that they have today. There was no video games, there was no phones, none of the stuff that they're doing today. Back then they actually got involved in things. And when they went to school, they had to sit on their ass and behave, which is not the case anymore. The kids can talk back to the teachers with impunity. When we were in school, you had to actually pass. I think you had to have 65%, or you didn't. If you failed a year, you didn't repeat a subject you failed. You repeated the entire year. It was that simple. Today, they stream the kids. They don't know anything. You fail in life. So why wouldn't you fail them in school if they're not learning or they're not taking it seriously?
I think schools manifest what's going on in society, and I think that says it all. That all schools reflect the lack of civility in society that we seem to be experiencing today.
By the 2020s, the vibrant array of clubs and teams that Fenelon Falls Secondary School once had to offer is becoming a distant memory. Today, students are part of a global village. The halls are much quieter after school, without the same diversity of extracurricular activities. Many students go home to connect with friends through their smartphones and computers. They can live virtual lives through video games and spend their days engaged with online course materials presented on smartboards. Cursive writing has become as rare as typing had been in previous decades. Modern-day students experience a very secure learning environment, where staff must escort outside visitors, and there is not as much community involvement.
There was a huge level of respect that I saw change quite a bit as I became a teacher through the years. We stopped having pep rallies. Music was not as big a program as it had been. We stopped having full school dismissals to attend sports events. Over the years, sadly, I think the strain of the ministry expectations and just the pressures that changed on the role of teachers, when people left the school, they didn't want to come back. So it stopped being so much of a social event for after school. People wanted to be done. They were tired, they got tired, and they were just, I don't want to come back and talk about school anymore. I need to be away from it. And that really was a very sad change in how we interacted with each other.
If you treat people as if they work in a factory, they'll start to behave that way. And that's what we started to see. People would arrive to work just before they needed to be. They would leave immediately after the last bell had rung. Whereas previously, so much extra time was put into the building by all of us, and that was somehow not appreciated when you started to count the minutes.
I hear all sorts of bad stories about, oh, you're lucky you're taught then and not now. Things have changed so much. It may be true, but I don't know. I just have faith in young people, thank goodness. You don't have faith in young people, how can you have an optimistic view of the future? And I mean, I don't have much future left, being 84, and I think of the people that are 34. I can't believe that youth isn't going to see us through.
What does he think of the kids? I think the kids are wonderful. I loved my kids. They were great. Never had a kid to the office in my whole career. Part of that was because I thought, no, it's going to be worse here with me anyways. But still, trouble? Not much. Not much. I used to say, get in the canoe and paddle in my direction, and we're going to get to where we need to get to. And we did. And the kids are great. To this day, people haven't changed. You go back 1,000 years, it's the same kid sitting in front of you. If you 100 years from now, it'll be the same kid, fundamentally, same kid. What we demand of them is different, though. If you set a bar down there, human beings will meet it. But if the bar is here and there is no if, they'll meet it too. So all is not lost. There's tons of wonderful kids right now, not 30 years ago or 20. Tons of wonderful kids who are as good as you could ever wish for, who are bright and kind and good. And a lot of things, I will say, have improved with the kids these days. And it is true. Improved. Like what? Homophobia still has a long way to go. Better though. Racism still has a long way to go. Still better though. All the ills the kids of today should feel proud about themselves because they have at least overcome it, and in some cases certainly pushed it to the periphery. It's something that they are not interested in entertaining. That doesn't mean it's not there though, and there's still work to be done. I have lots of great things to say about the kids of today. I do think though, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we have to look at ourselves, and I'm talking about the older crowd, and we have to, if you want to shape something in this life, it's work. It's often unpleasant. Sometimes it's unpleasant. But they don't need friends. They don't need anybody telling them everything's okay. You know, you just do as you wish. They need to know this is how we're doing business here. And they will rise to the occasion. Absolutely.
Giving students guns and live ammunition to learn marksmanship without teacher supervision would be as unimaginable today as a robotics class would have been to the good soldiers of generations past. Fenelon Falls Secondary School continues to change with the world around it. So, what makes a falcon a falcon? Perhaps it's not what has happened in the past, but perhaps it's what we are building for our future.